Today we'll be moving on to our second door ajar. If you don't know what door ajar means or what ajar means, you can see that the door is open just a little bit. So certain people can come in through the door and certain people cannot. The door ajar era begins in 1880 and it lasts until 1920. You have about 1 million people per year coming in. Now you're going to see a shift to what we're going to refer to as new immigrants. They're from South, Central, and Eastern Europe. You will see increased discrimination of these groups, and you also see that the Asians will be barred, and we'll talk more about that. This is more of an overview, but by 1930, 30% of citizens were foreign born. These new immigrants gathered in cities in order to live with others of like language. They had, similar customs and religion, and plus they didn't have the financial means to go west and take up farms like the German immigrants did. In New York City, this is just kind of a fun fact. You don't have to write this. 4/5 of New Yorkers were foreign born. It had twice as many Irish as Dublin, as many Germans as Hamburg, and half as many Italians as Naples. And make sure you write this part down. They are pushed to America by famine and lack of opportunity in their native lands, and they fled racial, religious, and political persecution. And a lot of countries had compulsory military service, which means that they were required to serve in the military. But most immigrants are going to be pulled by America's promise. America has this image in the world as a place of political opportunity, economic opportunity, and also, too, we're going to have railroad agents that will be sent to various countries, and they will recruit immigrant workers. Several states will actually do the same thing and have different bureaus and agents. So the new immigrant, and many of you would know if you fit into this, if your ancestors came from any of these countries, but you can see the list of countries here that describes the new immigrant. They are South, Central Europeans, and they're being pulled to the United States by the promise of opportunity and equality. If you go ahead and look at this picture, this cartoon is actually on our final, so take a look at this. You can see all of these dark, horrible things are being left behind, and these new immigrants have this real place of opportunity. You can see there's no oppressive taxes, no expensive kings, no compulsory military service, and you're going to see that Uncle Sam is kind of welcoming them as a refuge because they're going to get in this small sign here, free education, free land, free speech, free ballot, free lunch. So it seems to be, again, an awesome place for many people to go. At the same time, though, you're going to see a lot of discrimination against these new immigrants, and you can see Uncle Sam is not real happy to welcome this new immigrant who's bringing poverty, disease, anarchy, desecration. So just some negative cartoons that we're going to look at. Heavily anti-Italian cartoons, and you can see these Italians are being portrayed as rats. You can see the mafia here. You can see socialists. You can see the mafia is going to be known for really being violent and bringing a lot of organized crime, and that's going to be seen as a negative image of the Italians. There's another one. As you can see from this cartoon, this is what this magazine would like to do, this cartoon, with the Italians. Put them in a cage and dump them in the ocean. So very anti-Italian. You don't need to write this quote down, but you're going to see now we're going to talk about the discrimination. And this congressman explained the industrial army of Asiatic laborers is increasing the tension between workers and the management in the American economy, and the door must be closed. That's why the door is starting to close, and that's why it's ajar, because the door will be totally closed to Chinese, Japanese, all Asians are really not going to be welcome during the door ajar period. And remember, China is going to be pulled to America. You have railroad agents that go to China and say, please come to our country and work. And then when they get to the United States, many of them will be horribly discriminated against. In 1880, there were about 75,000 Chinese in California, and a lot of native-born Americans resent the Chinese for accepting lower wages, and Congress will then enact the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's our first piece of legislation that is aimed at a particular race or nationality, and it virtually stops Chinese immigration for 10 years. Also, in general, if you are Chinese ancestry, descent. You have to show your papers at all times. Basically, Chinese immigration is very limited all the way up until 1934. So we are closing the door to China. And if you look at this picture here, if you don't know what WASP means, we're going to, at the end of this era, you're going to see the Klan, the KKK, will rise, and it will take on an anti-immigrant status. WASP means White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and you can see, according to this political cartoon, this magazine, this is what this WASP man, this is what this native-born American is going to do to the Chinese. This Chinaman, he is going to punch him in the face. Another primary source from this era, very popular magazine, you can see this woman is trying to protect this Asian while all these people are going to really beat him up, try to hurt him, and you can look at some of the various names that we have up here that are very negative towards the Chinese. And you can see, again, that was the sentiment. In fact, in one town outside of Seattle, all the Chinese were rounded up and they were taken out in the middle of the night to the desert, and they were pretty much just left there. You can see from this graph here what the Chinese Exclusion Act did to Chinese immigration. By 1885, no one's welcome or coming in. And again, the Chinese pretty much built the transatlantic railroad. So also in 1905, many schools had already segregated the Chinese. They really didn't allow them to attend school with Caucasians, and now marriages will be banned between Caucasians and Chinese. And also beginning in 1910, Chinese immigrants were detained and questioned at Angel Island. If you're wondering what Angel Island is, it is the equivalent to Ellis Island, but it's on the west coast in San Francisco. So civil liberties are totally denied. Thousands of people are detained for months. 30% are told, you have to go home, we don't want you. 1892, Ellis Island opens. Also, there's going to be the gentleman's agreement with Japan, where the United States government goes to the Japanese government and says, we don't want you to send your people to migrate to the United States. So in 1917, you have the Asiatic Barred Zone Act, which pretty much prohibits Asian immigration. It also adds a literacy test. There will also be a literacy test, a literacy act passed for immigrants in general. Woodrow Wilson was president at the time. He did not support this. Congress overrode his veto. So it's not that you had to speak English. It was that you had to be fluent in your native language or English. And if you can see from this political cartoon, again, what the 1917 literacy test does, most of you can see that, and you understand that if you don't have an opportunity to become educated, that this in your own country, and you're coming to America for opportunity, this would limit you and you would not be allowed entry into the United States. Most of you can also see that times are changing in history. So by 1920, we're going to see a backlash against really all of these immigrants that are going to come to the United States. You will work in your packet on pages 3 through 7. You will also come up and tell me when you're finished. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you understood this information. If you have any questions, this is the time that I would need to hear it from you. You will work on your political cartoon now for Door Ajar, which is going to be up on the front board where you can see Open Door and also Door Ajar. Be prepared tomorrow to have a work day on your family immigration project and bring any materials that you need from home to work on it.